Welcome to Micro Crest, where we focus on fundamentals for directional bias and technicals. And last week was quite unfortunate for the yen traders selling against the yen. There was an intervention from both sides of the US and the Japanese Ministry of Finance, and the yen looks to be on the long side. But first of all, let's look at the dollar. So this is the structural high break. So this is a high, and then we're expecting a low and a high. And where do I think there would be a change is most likely this point to continue to the upside. That's for one, and the second one is this bottom area. So I have my reasons. I spoke about dollar going longs, which the only opportunity we had last week was this deal on the money here. Unfortunately, price had to pull back, so then it fell to close above this point, and now we are seeing a reversal. So the only reason why I'm looking for longs at this point is due to the fact that this is structural. This is a structural range I'm looking at. So technically, we might see a push from here to this point, and if Dixie continues to be weak, we might see price pull back here before going to the upside. Overall, see bullish on the yen. I mean on the Dixie. The yen is quite an interesting one because analysis went exactly as analyzed last week. On the weekly and on the daily, I made mention of this going to see price pull all the way down and technically take this point out, and then we might see price pull deep because you can check the previous video. I made mention of this point as liquidity. Let's look at it on the daily time frame. Yes, because that is the range, and this was also liquidity. So technically, this was the target you were buying, but that was not in the market also. But what I'm seeing is there is a change in the market structure for the yen, and remember we've been talking about the yen pushing all the way to this target point before technically going to the downside, and this is on a monthly time frame. So the yen has been hiking, and what I'm saying is that there is going to be a change here, and that is the yen strength. So this entire move here is a bearish leg to the downside, and now we're expecting a bearish pullback. That's a bullish leg now. If you're looking at it from this angle, so that's going to be a long ride all throughout the year. First of all, let's look at the dollar pace. Previous monthly candle for this was bearish before we had this doji. So remember we made analysis on this Aussie and we've been buying because of this demand, and we're looking at price going to weekly supply area before we can look for shorts. And then this was a weekly supply area which technically doesn't look like a point that is going to hold, but if it should, this is the target. Sorry if it doesn't, and I don't think it will, because when you look at this on your daily time frame, this is the structure, this is a high, this is a low, this we are looking at this point as a high. So if you see price pull back, you might technically see price going higher. But due to dollar strength, you might see price go lower, but Oz is quite strong. Pound also is similar, which if we can see exactly as we analyzed these points. We had a push, we expected a short here, which it did. Looking at it, yes, we had the short here, but then price bounced as we mentioned earlier last week. You can go watch the previous video. So right here, the reason why I'm looking at this to the downside is this is the first point of reaction. I expect price to continue lower, and for that reason, I expect a short here. So why am I looking at it from that angle? This is a bearish leg. This is an entire bearish leg, bullish leg, pullback. I'm looking for a bearish leg entirely to the downside. And we have a breakup structure here. So this is what I expect. This is a low, this is a high, and then I expect this. So that is what I'm looking out for the US GBP USD. For USD card, it's not making any sense to me, but I'm more to the downside. look at it from the weekly. There's a weekly supply there, but remember the structure is this is the bearish leg, so expecting a pullback to short. And if you're looking at a pullback, technically, where do you think price should head to? We expect price to come at least to this point, and because this is out of this range, so I expect price to go as high as this point before shorting. EU is similar to GU, which we've been talking about for the past few times. This is the low, this is the high. I actually expected price to go lower, but it just trapped entire number of sellers, and I expect price to come as high as this point and then drop. This point we might see some change, some bounce reaction from this point. And the UJ is quite the interesting one. So you can see this is exactly the analysis. And I expect a little pullback, but you look at confirmation. I'm not too interested on that. I'm more interested on the Swiss against the USD, which we made mention exactly what we were looking at, and price market did exactly what we expected. This was the analysis last week. So we had our break, we had a long opportunity here. Price is here, so if you can take the risks, you can take the short from here to the downside. Why? Because this is the last range. But I'm expecting if price doesn't hold, you might see price come as deep as far as that point. Why? Because on your monthly time frame, we expect price to go deeper, and then we'll see a drop. I still expect a drop, so that's what I have for the dollar pairs. And for my other currency pairs, we have Aussie, Swiss, the first. In alphabetical terms, this is price is reacting from our weekly demand, and this is a structural price just broke, so we expect price to continue higher going to the daily time frame. This is price reacting from this point on the 4 hours. We have a break of structure here. This is our last low, so this is structural. Technically, you might still see price go lower before going higher. So, but you can use your confirmation to take your longs from this point to the upside. This is due to Swiss being the weakest on the board for me. This week also, looking at BTC, the month has ended. Look at the previous month. It's a kind of bullish doji, showing there might be price going to the downside. Going to the weekly, remember when you said this point is supposed to hold, but technically you might see price break it. But the funny thing here is that the 4 hours price was supposed to continue higher, still holding. So, but technically we are bearish. This is so I expect one more push here. You can see a short from here, and then a break of this point and continuation to the downside, just to fulfill this bearish leg. As for BTC, the Swiss yen, which I've been saying this for ages, on our monthly time frame, previous, remember this is always our target, the 186 area. Can we just close looking at the weekly? Where is our target? This is our weekly area. We expect a pullback. The candles are quite too long, so we'll see some pullbacks, then we can short. So this is long term going to 186 area. The Euro NZ, which we talked about price going lower. Previous multi candle is bearish momentum candle, so I expect price to continue lower. Weekly supply, there's no weekly supply here. Technically, we might see price come as high as this, but I will be looking at the current reaction from this supply, and we have a breakout structure on the 4 hours. If price continues lower to this point and we see a change to the upside, I might be tempted to long, but remember the NZ is stronger than the Euro, so my main view is to take price. I expect price to come higher to be shorted. This is due to a fundamental reason. GBP AUD on the monthly, Remember, we expected price to pull back to our weekly supply when we made analysis, and look at this. For the past weeks, we've been expecting price to go down there, and price did. Another weekly supply. The problem is that this is our main demand, not that point it's reacting from. But regardless, it has bounced off there. This was a good long opportunity last week. Is so why it was. If you remember the analysis in the last video, is because this is the last structural range. So this is our low, and we expect a high. So if price hits here, I would be taking the trade based on this range, looking for short somewhere here and targeting these points, but knowing that technically prices can go lower. This is due to the fact that Aussie is strong, but pound is not that strong yet. Although they held and there was a descent about a hike of some sort, which will give it some strength. But Aussie is holding, although the inflation data is still dropping, and they might look at hiking at some point, probably. Pound card, it's we're talking about longs. We have this price reacting from this weekly demand. So we are looking at a continuation of this going to the daily. This was our range, low high, and we talked about longing from this point at least to this somewhere here on the 4 hours. You can see that that is the target. Yes, and I made mention that this low had to be taken out. We wait for confirmation somewhere here, which this was something. So if we see opportunity here early on, we might long at least at this point, but I know price should go as high as that point, and then we have the pound squeeze for the monthly. First of all, look at this. The month closed with a massive bullish momentum candle, which is showing that there might be a pullback. So weekly demand. Where is our weekly demand? The weekly demand I do have is somewhere here, at least. So, are we at a supply? Somehow at a supply, yes. So it means price might pull back down there. Going to the 4 hours. Look at this. Um, we had this guy grab liquidity, then we had a break to the downside. So I might take a shot from here. Depends on what I see on the lower time frames, that's 4 hours and 1 hour. So it looks good for a short for me, although you might also argue this is a liquidity grab to continue price higher. No problem. It looks so. Is it the card on the table? Why? Because on the monthly, look at this. The monthly candle is selling us is massively bullish. The bullish engulfing. Go to our weekly. There is a weekly. There is none. There's a weekly momentum previous week. So daily time frame. This is our zone, and it grabbed liquidity. So now what I would expect is that this is a doji kind of candle. If I see on Monday a bullish or on Tuesday we have a rally based rally outlaw. This is why, because NZD is actually to me the strongest part of the yen. We have the NZD Swiss, which looks good for a long, but it's close to a supply. And we might look at short, a pullback to this demand and then continuation. And the JP 225, remember I talked about commit to this 59,500 level. There's a rally based rally on the monthly here. Going to weekly, there might be a target here as a zone. So this was a good shot all the way down, and I'm still looking at shots. So why is that? If you look at the weekly time frame, looking at the weekly time frame, what we have here is a doji, and there is an imbalance somewhere here. So if you look at it from your D1 perspective, price has to go back to that point to fill it up one more time and then short. So this is the range we're working with, and then this was the D1 supply. Did it grab liquidity? Is it the internal range? Probably. So maybe price might come as high as this point one more time before dropping. So that's just what I'm looking out for the JP225. And I also have the US 30 and the US 30 on the 3 months. The target is quite very realistic. There's this demand here. On the monthly, is there a monthly demand? No. Is there liquidity? Yes. So what do? We go to the weekly. Is there a weekly demand? Yes. This is the weekly demand. Where is our range? This is our range. A high, our low, a high, and they expect a low. Continue. So that's the range, right? And for such reason, where is our monthly candle? Doji, weekly. It's telling us, okay, it's also a doji. Going to the daily time frame. This was the last range, and it was taken out by this point, and then this point also came, grabbed liquidity, or whatever the case may be, broke structure. Going to the 4 hours, there is a high probability chance of these shorts, and these longs actually took place nowhere. So I would like to take this short to this point before price going as far lower. Remember, this is the range we are playing in. This is the range first, maybe before this point. We have the US 500, similar to the US 30. Expect price to go lower, and price should go lower. Expect D1. Alright, so this reconstruction, liquidity, whatever the case may be, this is a zone. I expect this drop from there. That should drop from, and an extra addition could be the UK 100. It's bullish on the monthly, so we expect weekly demand. This is the weekly demand, so technically you might see price pulling all the way down, and you might see this